Hello everyone. I am Alice of KHR Arts and Cloud Orchid Publishing, and today I'm going to talk to y'all about how I wrote Be Mine. So my next novel that is set for publication is Be Mine. This novel is my 7th novel after Succumb to Darkness, and I finished it in late 2025. My goal is to have it officially published and released in 2026. The wait right now is waiting on my cover artist to complete the cover art for it. And a big part of that wait is she's also creating cover art for the re-release of Love of the Sea for the audiobook that I also completed, so we have a little bit of a backlog there. And then handing it off to the layout artist, and then of course publication. So it is going to take some time to become public, but we will get there. The whole process of writing Be Mine has been a long time coming. So there is really no larger reason to why it took me so long to complete Be Mine other than it just kept getting put on the back burner. Be Mine wasn't necessarily so much a novel that was like difficult for me to write. It wasn't like when I was sitting there at my keyboard that I was like struggling to find the words or struggling to know what my characters were doing or where the plot was going or anything like that. It really came down to that I just kept having other stuff get in the way. Back in 2024, the big thing that got in the way was my corporate job. I was working long hours, working that job, and then also doing everything else that I do, and also trying to make sure that I manage my familial and my friend relationships and my romantic relationship, and just, it's a lot, and it just kept getting put off. And I would work on it here and there, but I wasn't really buckling down and being serious about working on it. And then I got laid off in 2025 at the beginning of the year. And so while that opened up a lot more time and energy for me to be able to work on stuff because I didn't have my corporate job anymore, that meant that I had to replace a lot of that with freelance work because I got bills to pay. And so despite all this, in 2024, I did knuckle down and be like, okay, I need to get the audiobook for Love of the Sea done, because that was something that's been on the back burner, just languishing far longer than Be Mine. And I was like, I keep saying I'm going to finish it. I keep having people ask me about audiobooks at conventions. I need this to be done. And so I finished recording all of the chapters by myself for Love of the Sea in 2024, and then I knuckled down this year, 2025, and I completed all of the sound editing for Love of the Sea in August of 2025. This was a massive undertaking. I did everything myself by myself. Now, that's what the backlog is I'm currently waiting on the cover art for the re-release of Love of the Sea. Rhiannon is doing the cover art. She is the same artist that did the cover art for Succumb to Darkness. I am super excited with the preliminary sketches that she's shown me. It's going to be beautiful, y'all. And she is also only one person who also has a job and a life and all of that. It's going to take her some time to complete the Love of the Sea cover, and then it's going to take her time to complete the Be Mine cover after that. So we have a bit of a backlog here that is further holding up the show with Be Mine finally becoming a published book. It was pretty much in August of 2025 after I finished the Love of the Sea audiobook, and it's pretty much, okay, this project is now, I have done everything in my power to get this project done. I am now relying on other people to do their part, which means that now I need to go fill my time with something else. That's how I roll, y'all, is I do everything up to the point that someone else or something else has to happen in order for the thing to proceed. I don't just sit there and wait around for it. I go and find the next thing on my list and I worry about that. And then once the thing is no longer in hold, then we'll worry about that thing again. That is the dance that I do with all my projects. I always have different projects in different stages of completion because that is the best way to get things done as quickly as possible. So while I've been waiting for everything to move forward with Love of the Sea, I've been working on Be Mine. And so from August of 2025 to December of 2025, I have just absolutely just knuckled down and been like, okay, this is our primary project. This is what we're spending all of our time doing. Well, not all of my time. I still have all the other things that I do, but I mean, it is my primary project. It is my primary focus. And I did it. I did it, y'all. I was so determined to finish this project. And I'm just so proud of myself that I finally finished it, because it got to the point where this was one of those projects where I was just like, oh my God, I just want it to be done. I got to the point where I hated it. And honestly, I feel like that is a part of the process as a writer, as an author, that you finally get to a point where you hate it. You hate your story. And I feel like that's actually an important place to be in with your stories, when you finally get to the point where you hate it, because then all rose-colored glasses are off, the scales have fallen from your eyes, you see it for what it is, and you're able to be super critical and red mark everywhere and really bring it to its full potential, at least in my opinion anyway. And I was finally able to come full circle and love that story again by the end of the process, which does not always happen. Some projects I don't love it until it's a physical book in my hands, and then I love it again. But for Be Mine, this particular project, it's so funny, because for those of y'all that are in the know, my first 3 romance novels, Tearing Down the Wall, Freya's Baby, and Freya's Baby Shattered, all 3 of those started off as originally fan fiction. And you will never guess what fan fiction they were to begin with. They were Hey Arnold fiction, fan fiction, to start with, like long ago. Like we're talking back in I think 2010 is when I originally wrote them. And then, I did all the editing and stuff to remove all the fan fiction elements out of it and make them into their own stories. But the essence of that is still there. And that's kind of what Be Mine was it originally started off as fan fiction. And the fan fiction that it started off as was just so far removed from what it is now that I'm not going to share what the original fan fiction was, because it's just so ridiculous and it's become so irrelevant to what the story is now. But yeah, it did originally start as fan fiction way back in the same time period, 2010, 2011 or something like that. And I just sat on it. It just sat there. And it wasn't really meant to be for anybody but me. It was meant to be just a little private piece of writing to tee-hee over and whatever. And then the more I came back to it, the more I was there's something here. There's something bigger here. And so part of my process as an author with getting my writing done, and I also have ADHD. And a big part of having ADHD is you follow the dopamine, which makes it very difficult for a lot of people to be able to fully complete projects, because you get bored of the project and you don't want to do it anymore, and something else becomes shiny and new and exciting, and then you go chase that and repeat. To avoid that from happening, I will have a secondary project that I will play with while having the primary project, so that I can keep myself focused, so that when I start getting bored, we can go play with the secondary project and then come back to the primary project. That way also multiple things are getting done. This wasn't even the secondary project. This was the side piece hoe. There was being a distraction. I will admit. And I was just having fun with it. I was just oh, this is a fun time. I'm totally not dodging my projects and my responsibilities, playing with this strumpet of a story that's not even a real story. La la la. But the more I played with it, the more it became a real story. And I was finally okay, we got to put this in the queue. This is turning into something, and I need to make it be something. And so then that's when I started making it the secondary project. While I was working on Succumb to Darkness and while I was working on the Love of the Sea audiobook, that became the secondary project for those 2 projects. And so I was kind of doing that in the background. And then finally, after I finished the Love of the Sea audiobook, I was able to put all of the love and attention that I needed to bring Be Mine to fruition, to make it into a full story. And what took the longest was actually not writing the manuscript so much as the editing process. That's what took the longest. And a big part of that is because after I completed writing the manuscript, and I did a couple rounds of edits, because I believe very firmly in that when you send your manuscript off to beta readers or to an editor or whatever, you should first do a few rounds of edits yourself before sending it off for someone else to look at. That's just the courteous thing to do. Don't be sending stuff off with ridiculous spelling errors and typos galore in your disjointed thoughts and whatever. Make sure you're not just handing over your first draft. draft. Don't do that. I went through a few rounds of editing, sent it off to my beta readers, and I will admit I was a little surprised with some of the feedback that I got. And not so much that I was like blindsided or wow, this was really out of left field or anything, so much as that it really showed me that the manuscript needed a lot more work than I had initially realized. And I was like, oh, okay. Nothing wrong with that. It was very much the problem that is my problem as an author. I feel like every author has their problem. And this is always the problem they have with every book. It's a problem that you can never make go away. It will always be there, but you can learn how to make the problem smaller and smaller the more books you do. My problem is getting it all on the page. I struggle with distilling everything in my head and getting it onto the page for the reader. Sometimes I gloss over things because it's like, I know what's going on, and I'm just reading it, and my brain is just filling in the blanks for me, and I don't always realize that things have not necessarily been translated onto the page. So an example of this is in the story. Justin has a really hard home life. He has a broken family. His dad is an alcoholic. His mom is just angry at everybody for good reason. And his brother is a drug addict, and they live in the bad side of town, and he's not proud of some of the things that he's done, and he's really struggling, but he's really trying to claw his way out of this and try to make a better life for himself. I did not express that on the page. Basically, all that got onto the page was Justin is poor, and that was kind of it. I didn't explain how he was poor. I didn't explain anything about his home life or any of the dynamic there. Like, it was just, Justin is poor, feel bad for him, and that was kind of it. And my beta readers were like, I think we're missing some information here. I think we need more than just Justin is poor and we should feel bad for him. And I'm like, oh crap. And that was the thing, was that after all this wonderful feedback from my beta readers like y'all, I am very much the person where it's like, I don't want to hear about how great my story is in this editing, creation, working process. Like, that doesn't help me. It's like, yeah, the story's nice, whatever. What do I need to fix? What can I improve? When I am in the works of writing and editing a story, I want to know effectively what's wrong with it. That's far more useful to me. Once it's a physical book and it's done, then yes, I would love very much to know how much you love it and how great it is and da-da-da, because like telling me things that are wrong with it, it's like, well, it's already a book, I don't know what to tell you. Oops. During the actual editing part, though, that is very important to me. And so getting that kind of very detailed feedback back about like, this is what's wrong with it, this is missing, blah blah blah, all of that was so important to me, so that I could sit down and really analyze those parts of the manuscript and be like, okay, here's our holes, we need to figure out how to fill in these holes. And so that's why it seemed a little bit weird with my process that like, after I had done these massive editing rounds, that suddenly it's, I'm writing these chapters and whatever. It's because I had to add, I think it was something like 9 more chapters into the story to fill in those holes. And a big part of that wasn't even necessarily that those plot holes required that much writing to be added, so much as once I started filling in those plot holes, I then realized there were other aspects of the story that I'm like, you know what? I really want to go into more detail about this. Or you know what? This has really inspired me. Let's make this scene about this over here. You know what? I really want to add this into the story. And so this was one of the first times that I've had where I've really added a lot more into the story during the editing process. Usually with a lot of the editing process, it's not so much getting rid of stuff in my story as much as it's, okay, fill in this little plot hole here, fill in that plot hole there, rearrange some of this stuff, it's a little confusing, whatever. This story is like the only story that I've done thus far where I've had to add in such a high volume of plot into the story after the fact. And I am so proud of how this story has turned out. I think that it is so much better than the initial manuscript. All of the things that I added, I feel like just really realize the vision of this story and really, really bring it to life. I think that it makes the relationships in the story so much more meaningful. I think that it really makes the message feel more organic and less preachy, because the bigger message of Be Mine, because all of my stories have a message. And it's not so much that I want my stories to be like preachy or like today on Saturday morning cartoons we learned a lesson about friendship or whatever. It's more so that it's like this is kind of the common thread throughout the book, that I want that to be the core that we hang on to and then we build out from there. Such as with Geisha Hands. The core message of Geisha Hands is that it is unrealistic to think you're going to be the very best like no one ever was. Most people go through life never being the best at anything, and that's okay. Finding out what it is that you're good at and that you're passionate about, and being happy and accepting where you are with that thing you're good at and you're passionate about is enough. That is enough. That you don't necessarily need to be super duper uber famous or be the number one bestest that ever was or anything like that to feel fulfilled and be happy with what you've accomplished. And so the thread with Be Mine is about relationships, specifically with what does a good relationship look like, a healthy relationship, and what does a bad relationship look like? What does an unhealthy relationship look like? And I wanted to show that with the imperfections. I didn't want it to be, oh, here's the very obviously bad relationship and he's super duper horrible and boo and, you know, he's the villain. And then here's the super duper perfect good relationship and everything's perfect and magic and blah. It's like, no, I have all of the characters in Be Mine screw up and do dumb stuff and hurt each other and hurt themselves. Like, when I say hurt themselves, like when you make yourself feel bad, when you let the intrusive thoughts win kind of thing, like that kind of hurting yourself kind of thing. Not choosing the best way to react to situations or not jumping on the opportunities that you should have, that sort of thing. That everybody's making mistakes, everybody's flawed, we're all people, and that some of the relationships in the story do have very toxic elements to them, and others are trying to essentially fix that toxicity. And it's all about how, like, you can take a relationship that is bad, toxic, and you can fix it. And you can also take relationships where it's like, this is obviously a really good relationship, but there is a person in it who's very damaged and they need extra help. And from the outside, that might look selfish or bad, but you're on the outside looking in. You don't know the whole story. That's the common thread in Be Mine, is that I really wanted to showcase how relationships are really not this good and evil, bad and good. Like, there's a lot of gray area, but also recognizing things that it's like, you know what, that's not okay. That should just never be okay. And also that doesn't necessarily write off that person into oblivion, that they can take steps to recognize, wow, those things I did were super duper not okay, and I need to work on those things if I want to have a relationship in the future, kind of thing. So that's the common theme of Be Mine. I have all the characters grow throughout the story. And that was another one of the things that I really had to add in with these extra chapters, was that with the initial manuscript, I will admit I was just so excited that I just really wanted the story to be done, that I feel like after getting my beta readers' feedback and then after really getting back into the story, I felt like the characters didn't really earn their endings, and I hate that. And what I mean by that is that when you have the character arc, where the character is supposed to grow and learn something, not necessarily like Saturday morning cartoons learning a lesson thing, but they're supposed to, okay, we're doing things, oh no, I have messed up, and then bad things happen, but then I have a realization, and then I learn from it and I grow as a person. Like, that's very like standard character development in a story, is the character arc. And I realized that we got to the point where they realized the ways that they screwed up, but the part where they're supposed to learn and grow as a person, I kind of glossed over that. I was just like, yeah, everybody lives happily ever after, whatever, it's fine. And so really working in, I had to do the work to have my characters do the work to kind of learn their lessons and stuff. So I worked really hard on those chapters of showcasing them, having that big moment where they all realize, okay, this is what we need to do in order to make things change so that we can all be better and make these relationships better. And I'm really proud of myself with how all of that came to fruition in the story, because it was a lot of work, and especially with the story being about relationships. And I will admit myself, unfortunately, I have had several bad relationships. I did not know how to pick them. in the past. And so from personal experience, looking at those things that it's like, wow, that was really not great. And then looking at my current relationship with my partner, Neil, the literary mercenary, and all of the amazing things about that relationship, all the green flags, and kind of distilling that into the story as well, like looking at, wow, these are the things that were really screwed up that happened in my past relationships, and these are the really amazing things happening in my current relationship, and using that personal experience to be able to make these growth moments feel more authentic for these characters. And that's why I tell people, like, I will probably never write anything that's like akin to a memoir. Like, I don't feel comfortable really like sharing my personal story in that kind of aspect, so much as I feel way more comfortable with putting little Easter eggs of myself into my books. So these small aspects of me and my life into books, such as tearing down the wall. A lot of the stuff that Freya goes through with the modeling industry is stuff that either I personally experienced, or I know other people in the industry that they experienced, or they're common things in the industry that happen, things like that. So those little Easter eggs, little crumbs of my life. And with this, those little Easter eggs, those little crumbs of my life with relationships and the different types of relationships and how they can go really bad or they can go really good. People grow and change in unexpected ways, all that kind of stuff. So that's what I really put into that story. And it was also an exercise for me in dealing with some dynamics that I have not previously explored in my writing, and I don't really think I'll explore again. It's kind of like, I did it, hooray, yay me, I did that, check that off the list. kind of thing. It was really fun. It was a fun experiment for my writing with trying something new and seeing what I could do with it. And I feel like I did the best job that I could. Of course, with every book, hindsight is 20/20, and also we grow with, well, I hope anyway, with every book that we write. Of course, this book is going to be, in a lot of aspects, better than my previous books, but my books going forward are also going to be better than Be Mine is. And honestly, that's the way that it should be. It's just a part of my growth and my journey as an author with writing Be Mine and just going through this whole process and getting the incredible feedback that I did from my beta readers, and then being able to take that feedback and really bring this story to its fullest potential. So I'm just really excited to get this story out there for y'all to read and enjoy. I think it's going to be a really fun story. I think a lot of people are going to have a lot of fun with it, and it is a little bit of a departure from the other books that I've already written, but I feel like that's fun too, because I am known as a multi-genre author, and that my books are all so different from each other that I feel like it fits right in with the party that is all of my books, that it's like I have this and I have that, and I have a little bit of everything. So I think that it's going to be a really great addition to my author library, and I'm just so grateful to have this project done. Oh my god, I can't tell y'all just how many nights I was just like, I just wish this was done. I just want to be done. And it just feels so good to finally be done. And it's going to feel absolutely incredible when I finally hold this book in my hands. I can't wait to share it with everybody, and I can't wait to hear feedback from all of my readers. So I want to thank y'all so much for watching this video. If you liked it, please be sure to give it a like. And if you're new, subscribe. All right, y'all, thank you so much for watching. Take care. Bye-bye.